Welcome back. My guest today is Mr. David Walker, who is the CEO and President of the Peterson G. Peterson Foundation. He is a former U.S. Comptroller for our country, for the
Auditor
U.S.
General.
Auditor General,
right,
there you go. Okay. I have a hard time with some of these titles. You've certainly had plenty of them. Prior to the break, David, we were talking about Medicare and Social Security and basically our national debt. I believe that what has been done is unconscionable in terms of grandchildren that are not yet born and great-grandchildren and what they can expect. They're going to see an America different than you and I see or have seen when we were children, and I'm concerned about future generations. You stated prior to the break that one of your suggestions is that we have a mandatory retirement or savings, but that the government, while they may mandate it, will not be allowed to touch it.
Right. This isn't like the Social Security Trust Fund, which is an oxymoron. The Social Security Trust Fund is not, you can't trust it, it's not funded. It's not a legal trust fund with fiduciary responsibilities. The only assets in the Social Security Trust Fund are non-readily marketable government debt. Don't get me wrong, that debt is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. It's guaranteed as the principal and interest, but basically it's an IOU. What I'm talking about is where you would have an automatic savings, kind of like a 401k savings plan, all right, that would go into a real trust fund with real fiduciary responsibilities and liabilities that would be invested in real investments, kind of like the Federal Thrift Savings Plan, which is a plan that covers federal elected officials and civil servants who were hired after 1984. We need to get our savings rate up in this country. It is abysmally low. It's a little bit better now because people have started to save more for the future, but it's still not high enough.
Now, would we have this in conjunction with the Social Security?
Yes, basically what would happen is Social Security would remain a defined benefit plan. You would end up receiving it at later ages based upon based upon phasing in higher retirement ages based on the longer life expectancies that we have now, okay? But in addition to receiving whatever you're going to receive under Social Security's base program, which would be defined benefit, you would have this investment account that you would be able to start accessing once you retire. You couldn't get it until you retire because one of the problems we have, unless you die. If you die, then your estate would get it.
Okay, but here's my question. Here in the Treasure Valley, over in Canyon County, I know that unemployment's reached double digits, and in other parts of the U.S. Okay, so people have less money to spend. We've had holdbacks in the state of Idaho. People are the increased rising costs of living. They have less income. They're going to continue to put money into Social Security and Medicare, which are both woefully inadequate. And now you're proposing that they're mandating more money for their own good, for saving. But what about the people that just don't have that? I mean, how
you raise a good point. Well, first, the government has raised the minimum wage significantly, and it's being phased in. So presumably, the people who would have the most difficulty in saving are those that are at the minimum wage level. And it is being increased dramatically over the next several years. It's true that people are having a difficult time right now because obviously we're in tough economic times. And hopefully we're going to see that turn around before too long. But the simple fact of the matter is most people can afford to save 2 to 3% of their pay. I remember one of the things that my mother told me is that if you want to save, then don't touch the money. Because once you touch the money, you will spend the money. Some people spend it more than once. Federal government definitely spends it more than once.
Well, our Congress are a very good example.
So we're talking about a modest amount, okay? We're not talking about a significant amount of money, but a modest amount of money accumulated over a number of years benefiting from the miracle of compound earnings can turn into a substantial sum when somebody retires.
Okay, now your work for the G. Peterson Foundation is all private.
It's a family foundation.
Okay,
right.
You are advocating private coalitions and putting pressure on Congress through grassroots efforts. There are a lot of organizations popping up all over that are saying the same thing. Basically, there's a distrust of the Congress. There's a distrust of politicians in general. And people are concerned that the government is not doing what the government should be doing. Okay, so your foundation wants to help put pressure on Congress to do the right thing, to be accountable.
Right. You said some important things earlier. What we want to do is that we want to promote more transparency and accountability today in order to create more opportunity tomorrow. What is going on right now is that we are mortgaging the future of our children and grandchildren. We are reducing relative investments in their future at a time where they're going to face increasing competition in the global economy. That is not only fiscally irresponsible, it is immoral.
I agree.
It is taxation without representation. You know, it's easy to spend somebody else's money. It's even easier to spend somebody else's money when they're not born yet or they're too young to vote. And so that's what we have to recognize. We want to try to help conduct several issue campaigns in the hope of forming a movement that will bring pressure on Washington to address large known and growing problems before we face a crisis, and it will make the political price of doing nothing greater than the political price of doing something.
Okay, now people will want to find out more. We've got very limited time here,
Sure.
and I appreciate you being here. How can they contact you? Tell them about the website.
www.pgpf.org.
And by going to that website, they can find out more about how they can get involved and about the plans that you're talking about.
And they can sign up under the Citizen Action section. We've already had about 200,000 fellow citizens sign up. We want to get that to 1 million as quickly as possible so that we can end up changing this country to make sure that our future will be better than our past.
Your topic, Day of Reckoning, America's Fiscal Future, will that be, we'll have, I'm sure, some access on YouTube and on websites and on television, but will that also be on the website?
We'll see. I think we're going to get a copy of it. We may post a copy of it. I would imagine that the university is probably going to put a copy of it on their website.
Okay. So in the last minute that we have here, wrap up and let us know what's the best hope for America right now.
The United States is a great country, probably the greatest in the history of mankind, but we've got some serious challenges. We need to wake up. We need to start making tough choices. And if we do, our future can be better than our past. But if we don't, our best years may be behind us.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Allan Hodge. The program is FYIdaho.